Private pension saving is a crucial part of saving for retirement in the UK. Private pension wealth makes up 42% of UK household wealth, and in 2021, £115 billion was contributed to workplace pensions by 23 million people and their employers. The state pension is worth £9,654 a year in 2022-23. Many therefore use an income from a private pension to avoid experiencing too large a drop in their income and living standards when they retire. There are two main types of private pension: defined benefit pensions and defined contribution pensions. If you get a defined benefit pension, your pension income depends on how many years you've been a member of the scheme and your earnings during that period. When you reach retirement, you'll generally receive a share of either your final or career average salary each year until death. In return for an employer promising to pay out this retirement income, members usually contribute a portion of their salary each year to the scheme. In the UK today, pensions of this kind are mostly offered in the public sector. Unlike a defined benefit pension, where your employer guarantees you a particular income in retirement, defined contribution pensions are much more similar to conventional saving. Contributions are paid either by you or your employer into a pension pot. Funds held in this pot are then generally invested until retirement. Funds from the pension pot can be withdrawn from age 55. It'll be age 57 from 2028 onwards. Defined benefit pensions have become less common in recent years. In 1997, 46% of employees were contributing to a defined benefit pension, but this has fallen to just 28% of employees in 2021. By comparison, in 1997, just 10% of employees had a defined contribution pension. By 2021, this had increased to 51%. This growth in defined contribution pensions was accelerated dramatically by automatic enrolment, a government policy introduced in 2012 which requires employers to enrol most employees in a workplace pension by default. Workplace pension participation had been declining in the 2000s, but has now risen to around 80% of employees. In the public sector, defined benefit pensions still dominate. 82% of public sector employees have them, compared to only 7% in the private sector. Public sector pensions are much more generous than pensions typically available in the private sector, though they have been made less generous over the years through a series of reforms, in particular through increases to the age at which they begin providing an income. In the second half of the 20th century, pensioners on average had lower incomes than working-age people. Over 40% of pensioners were in poverty in the 1960s, early 1970s and late 1980s. Recent decades have brought policy changes that have sought to tackle pensioner poverty. As a result, pensioners are now no more likely to be in poverty than working-age people. Successive generations of pensioners have now reached retirement with larger private pension entitlements and higher property wealth than previous generations. In comparison, incomes for working-age people have stagnated since the financial crisis. As a result, the disposable incomes of pensioners have improved relative to people of working age. People born in the 1930s, 1940s and 1950s are also, on average, wealthier than previous generations were at their age. This generation-on-generation growth in wealth is in part due to growing pension wealth, and partly due to strong growth in the value of other assets such as housing. However, those born since the 1960s are no longer experiencing substantial generation-on-generation wealth increases. This partly reflects younger generations being less likely to own property at the ages that previous generations had owned property, with this only partly offset by them being more likely to have wealth in defined contribution pensions than previous generations. The outlook for younger generations is challenging. The rates of returns to different assets have declined over time, making it harder for people born later to accumulate wealth. This makes it harder for them to maintain an adequate standard of living when they retire. The returns to safe assets like government bonds and to riskier assets like equities have been highest over the working lives of people born in the 1950s and have declined since. The house price boom in the 1990s and 2000s largely benefited generations who were already homeowners by that point. People are also now living longer. Female life expectancy for those born in 1930 was 85 years old. This has increased to 90 for those born in 1985, almost 1 extra year of life per decade. Male life expectancy has also increased dramatically during this period. This means that people will need to retire later and build up more savings from pensions and other sources of wealth for their retirement. They may also need more wealth to afford care if their additional years of life are spent in poor health. This work is funded by the ESRC and Aberdeen Financial Fairness Trust. To find out more, please visit www.ifs.org.uk.